First this evening, we're coming to you from the Rockwood Parade area of Sligo Town Centre, a newly redeveloped and regenerated area. And it's very noticeable here that most of the cafes, shops and so on have forsaken plastic or neon signs, and they've gone for traditional hand-painted signs. Now apparently the craft of the sign writer used to be fairly nomadic, to tour around the country seeking out such work as was available. But these days, it's much more stable, it's viable, indeed, it's very profitable. And we've been meeting one sign writer who's the 5th generation in his family to follow the calling.
If you go back to the Middle Ages, when people by and large were illiterate, there wasn't much point in putting hairdresser or butcher or whatever it might be over your shop front because people couldn't read it. So at the time, the early sign writers used to paint pictorial representations of what the business was involved in. Therefore, you've got the tradition of the butcher having a bull's head, which is still with us today on the hanging signs. I started out doing some other things, and then I got into the sign writing business. I served my apprenticeship with my uncle, Gerry Fiztgibbon, who had at the time a shop at the bottom of High Street. That would have been back in the early 70s when things were radically different to what they are now. Subsequently, when I finished my apprenticeship, I started up on my own, and I was sign writing around the Munster area for a few years before I started the job in Foras. Is how you prepare the glass for them. It's lovely to see the trainees develop their skills. We normally get them when they have had little or no experience in sign writing. We'd get people possibly from a decorating background. We would get people from a School of Art background, but they wouldn't have done sign writing per se. Technically, it's quite different from the work that they might have been used to up to now. And it's lovely for me to see them at the end of 26 weeks coming to the stage where they can actually go out, consult with a customer and write a sign in the traditional manner or use some modern technology as well.
Teaching as well as sign writing is not unfamiliar territory in Gerry's family. His grandfather taught sign writing in the Cork Municipal Technical Institute in 1912.
I've got a medal that he won in 1904, the London City of Guilds Institute, and he did the technological examination in painting and decorating, which would have incorporated sign writing as the trade did at that time, and still does to a certain extent. He won second prize.
One of Gerry's own students who successfully completed the course has been operating his own thriving sign writing business in Skibbereen for 10 years.
People's attitude to sign writing has changed an awful lot. They realise that they can have something that looks nice, is handcrafted, produced by local people. It helps business for them, and it helps the sign writer earn a living. My business is mainly based in Skibbereen on the shop fronts and the hanging signs of Skibbereen, but stretching out, covering most of West Cork. Sign writing is not as difficult as some people would make it out to be. You would have to have a love or a graw for the trade or the craft itself. Any sign writer I've ever spoken to would say the same to you, that it looks hard, and it is hard, but if you really want to do it, you will do it. You will be able to do it. You can learn how to do it.
With people's attitudes changing, sign writing is changing and has done so remarkably over the last 30 years.
Well, prior to the 60s, you had an awful lot of beautifully handcrafted signs. When the 60s and the 70s came along, you had the introduction of plastic shop fronts, which are extremely unattractive, and they caused quite a lot of devastation really to the business. Nowadays we've got a reawakening of interest in the traditional techniques and skills, and I think the place is looking all the much better for it now.
Changes in the business are taking place on an ongoing basis. So what does the future hold for sign writers?
To me, sign writing is what I enjoy doing the most and what I'm the best at. I can make a good living out of it, living here in Skibbereen in West Cork. And I think there will always be a need for good sign writing and good painting, illustration. And the future is looking bright for me.
Signwriting hasn't really taken its place in people's consciousness as the art form that it is. It adds so much to our streetscape, it adds so much to our environment, and possibly unconsciously people react so well to it. When you walk into a street, there's lovely signs, there's lovely shop fronts, the whole area looks attractive and colourful. It encourages you to stay in the area, and I think it gives a feeling of well-being. People react very well to it. It's visual, it's colourful, and I think possibly it's one of the more underrated art forms, and I hope that will change.